Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We're glad to have you join us again. It's been a while. It's been a couple of months that we were not able to, get to this webinar that we usually have by Diaspora Innovation Institute every month. But in celebration of the 10-year anniversary, we had so many activities, both in Nigeria and in the US and in other locations around the world. So we're back to our monthly seminar, and it's a good feeling to see everybody post pandemic. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Dr. Remi Alapo. I'm one of the associate for Diaspora Innovation Institute, and I'm based in New York City. I'm a faculty at the City University of New York, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar today. In our midst, we have esteemed individuals that will be joining us in and addressing the diaspora, the issue or topic of the diaspora, how to harness, the efforts of those of us in the diaspora and, to work along with those who are in Nigeria, whether Nigerians who were previously in the diaspora and who have made the return home, or those who have been on the ground and looking to work with those of us in the diaspora. So I welcome you all once again. Our topic for today is going to be Nigerians in the diaspora, the USA data. And, today is September 29th, and in about 2 days will be the Nigerian 62nd Independence Day celebration. So as you can see, I'm trying with my background to have a background with the Nigerian and US flag. So, happy independence to everybody. So what we're going to do this morning is to start with our keynote speaker. I think it will be worthwhile to find out what exactly is this, diaspora data that we're going to be discussing today. And I have the pleasure of welcoming Mr. Obinna Anusiem, who is the CEO and founder of NGEX, a data provider and analytics solution company that enables clients to engage and drive awareness of their products and services with audiences in the African diaspora and also on the continent of Africa. Mr. Anusiem is the founder of Club 14, a group of professionals in the Silicon Valley area in California, which is focused on identifying and investing in social and financial opportunities that enrich and improve the well-being of the African community. Mr. Anusiem is engaged in research and data-related efforts for and about the African diaspora, and he's widely published, he's presented at conferences, and he's led the development of products that are targeted to African communities. Mr. Anusiem, welcome to our panel discussion this morning. Yes, you can unmute, please.
Yes. Oh, good morning. Yes, thank you.
Good morning.
Yes.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We're very grateful that you made yourself available. I know you're so busy, and anything for the African diaspora or the continent of Africa in improving relations and understanding of data, to analyze data and information that have been collected so that we can make use of those information to the best of our knowledge and abilities. So what I want to have you start this morning is to share with us the purpose of this report that was published in 2020, and to give us a general idea of how you came about collecting the information or working on the information for Nigerians in the United States. So this report is so extensive, when I read it, it's a 25-page report. I know it must have taken so much time and effort and energy to get all this information together. So please share with us first the reason behind this report and how you came about, this work, this valuable report on Nigerians in the USA.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for the nice welcome. Glad to be here. Yes, so regarding the report, which is the Nigerians in the USA report, coming from the work that we do on the diaspora, we've always been interested in bridging the gap between, this Nigeria and the Nigerian diaspora. But what we realized was that there's a serious gap in data availability in terms of understanding, who the participants are. It's very prominent even in Nigeria, but it's more prominent in, say, in the diaspora. And if you look at the diaspora, the biggest market in terms of remittances, which most people call out first, is the US market. And I've always wondered why, for all the numbers that we have in terms of how we excel, our population, the number of Nigerians in the US, how we're not able to have full representation across the breadth of opportunities that you would see in the US. So for example, we looked at, media spending. In the US, as of when we wrote the report, it was about $190 billion is spent every year on media spending. And out of the 190 billion, only about 5% is spent on African Americans. And we always wondered that, okay, if they're spending 5% on African Americans, what percentage is being spent on Nigerians or Africans in the diaspora? And wondering that why should we be targeted the same way that they're targeting African Americans? Why can't some of that money be directed at Nigerians or Africans in the diaspora to target them exclusively, So looking into it, we realized that there isn't a lot of data that helps people understand what the Nigerian or African in the diaspora truly is. For us, a lot of things are easy. When we come in and we say, oh, Nigerians have the highest remittances of the African diaspora, there are a lot of people here that don't even know what remittances mean, right? Because they've never sent Western Union. For us, that's second nature. So when you look at it, is how do we get information in the format that the people who write the checks can understand? And then if you go to them and say, okay, this group of people are a very good target and you should spend some money targeting them, it's easy for them to understand because you've presented the data in the manner that they can understand. So that was more of the driving force, right, from one end. And then the other part was also to help people on the continent in Nigeria to also understand the opportunities available in, say, the US market, right? If you look at the size, we come in and, I would say the average Nigerian will feel that, hey, Nigerians are the largest subset of the African diaspora in the US. True, but then the question is always, how many Nigerians are there in the US? And the numbers are all over the place, right? The official number is 461,000 Nigerians in the US. That's the official number. But the thing is, when you divide it by 50 states, that's less than 10,000 people per state. And for the average person that understands, that's just ridiculously low. But the truth is, that's the available number. And until you bring something that counters that, that's what they're going to use. So again, the report was really around how do we tell our own story in a way that the other people can understand it and then give us what is due to us.
Wow. Thank you so much. That is so powerful. I was looking at the executive summary part of your report, and the first thing that struck me was the amount of, income, the Nigerians that you surveyed. Obviously you didn't survey me, so I take offense that I'm not part of your report. So that means another an update is due soon, right?
Yes.
So, but this is what struck me was the amount of income combined in 2018, for example, that was generated by or earned by Nigerians right here in the USA. So, it's in the billions and billions and billions, and then in federal taxes also. And then out of that income or federal taxes, so $14.3 billion, was earned. And that's only in 2018. And I don't think this encompasses all Nigerians in the United States. So from the fraction of those that you have surveyed is such a significant high number. And then out of that $14.3 billion, $2.7 billion was paid in federal taxes alone, and $1.4 billion was paid in state and local taxes. And which leaves about 10.2 billion in spending power. That is incredible. I'm very proud that I'm a Nigerian in the diaspora, and for the work and the data that you've collected, it speaks volume to the the strength of the Nigerian community, spread out across the United States. And also, what I also found out that in 2018 alone, 9.3 billion was sent from the US to Nigeria, which is 38% of the foreign remittances from the diaspora. So that's a huge percentage, very, very huge percentage. So my question is, what do you think now we're in 2022? How do you think that other Nigerians will be able to be a part of this report so that we can show other communities or even Nigerians looking to collaborate on this work, those looking to move back home, that there's a power in the Nigerian spending in the US, the remittances, 38%, that's almost about 50% coming from outside of Nigeria into Nigeria. How do we pull together to be able to have, we have Chinatown, Koreatown. Do you see a prospect for a Nigerian economic, union right here in the US that, we encompass every, or at least majority of Nigerians to be able to be a part of this project?
Yes, thank you. So I like that term that you just used, the Nigeria Economic Union. Maybe I'll even steal that and use it. So I think you're right in the sense that we have the metrics, right? Like you've called up some of the numbers. They're pretty impressive. And then if you go further and just look at how we excel, they tell you 66% of Nigerians in the US have at least a first degree, which is way higher than the native born or even other immigrant classes. You look at individual income, median household income, we're above the average. We're above the median for all other sectors, right? So, but again, and then when you look at the income generated remittances, the numbers are there, but just because we're not able to tell a cohesive story, right? So what ends up happening is that the information gets filtered out and it's fragmented. So people hear about remittances, but they don't hear about the other pieces. And when they hear about them, they're not able to put them all together. But if you put it all together and tell a compelling story, then that at least starts to give an idea of what the magnitude of the capability that exists within the Nigerians in the USA, for example, is. And then the next question is now, how do you take advantage of that, right? There are ways to take advantage of that. One is on the, let's even say on the civic side, right? Which is representation, which is saying, hey, I'm here and I'm able to do this because I have this, right? That's one part of how things get done in America. The other part of it is, okay, within our community, if we are spending this amount of money and all that, what are the things that if somebody launches into that community can excel, can do well, like you're saying, within that Nigeria Economic Union on its own first? Can the diaspora be used as a launch pad for products that are coming out of Nigeria, right? And then within the diaspora, they grow. And then once the diaspora grows into a certain scale, then it starts to scale across the rest of the country. And there've been some success stories like that. So if you think about, I think Ola, the people that produce the food that we eat, right? They've been able to take that and even expand into other sectors. But even those kind of stories, we don't really call them out, right? We experience them, but we don't call them out and tell that story very well. Another example is, let's say Netflix. What has Netflix done? Netflix has come in and actually taking what the Nigerian diaspora likes, which is Nigerian movies, and they just put them on Netflix. And most people that have Netflix that I know, that's what they watch. So Netflix has been able to take something that's native to the Nigerian environment, right, and put it in the Nigerian diaspora, like you said, the Nigeria Economic Union, and they're reaping the rewards from there. The question is that how can you do that multiple times, right, so that even the small or large businesses see that as an opportunity and can benefit from that?
Thank you so much. I was also looking, you have a number of, very important statistics. For example, the most populous cities that have Nigerians in the US are there, collaborations with you for your report in terms of getting the needed data for, to see the number of remittances that come out of these cities? Does one city surpass the other in terms of remittances to Nigeria? And, how do you get to those communities to be able to collect these reports? To collect the data, I'm sorry.
Data. Yeah, so just to give some background, right? So the report isn't 100% all our data, right? It's a combination of our data with some third-party data. For example, there's US Census data, there's some reports from the New Economic Institute, so some other institutes that actually do monitor the diaspora. So that has been it's just a combination of those things, and then we've kind of like summarized it and told it in the story that we think is most appealing. So in terms of surveying, yes, we do some surveys, but what we also do is that we have platforms that we use to attract the diaspora on Nigerians around the world. And when they come to those platforms and interact on those platforms, we get some insight into what they're interested in, where they're coming from, their demographics and things like that. So we're able to tell who the people are, where they are, what they're interested in. For example, what kind of devices they use. Do they use an iPhone? Do they use Android? And then we combine that with some of the other third-party information to produce the report. But to answer your question around the cities, yes, we would like to do that. We haven't done that. Like, the US is very big. So being able to just cover everywhere is pretty tedious. But one of the next things we're going to do is start going down into subsegments of the population, right? So picking maybe one location and then trying to focus on that location and understanding that location a lot better, or picking one sector of, let's say, business and then focusing on that sector. So in terms of, I know you had asked earlier, in terms of collaboration, yes, we're very open to collaboration. And one of the things we've been doing is building databases of, say, Nigerian groups, churches and other places, so that we can all reach out to them and then be like a conduit or repository where it becomes easy to find that information. And we provide tools that enable, those associations or organizations be able to engage a lot better. So I guess to summarize what I'm saying, as yes, we're open to collaboration. If anybody is interested in collaborating with us, please reach out. We're always ready, and we're always open to ideas as well. A lot of these things that we're doing are relatively new, and there's nothing to look at. We just make it up as we go along. So we're always trying to talk to people and see what they're interested in or what will work best for them. And then we go in that direction. There's some organizations that are trying to do this as well. Like, we're talking to one organization that wants to figure out how many Nigerians are in Georgia. So that's something where we'll probably have to do a survey, and we'll have people fill out the survey. And please, if you get a survey from us, please fill it as correctly as you can, and we'll make sure that it's part of the next report that comes out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. It's very impressive to know of the work that you're doing. And, I'm sure many of the participants on this platform would be happy to work along with your company, in disseminating this survey and ensuring the timely response from, participants to be able to send them back to you. My next question is that, Nigerians in the diaspora through the remittances, have been the second largest contributor to the Nigerian GDP, in the foreign exchange earnings. And this is second to oil. So this is very, very huge. What are your prospects in continuing, to ensure that there's timely reports, timely information? Because most people, when give them a call in Nigeria, it's about send me money, but they don't know the power of the diaspora remittances, especially from the United States, coming back to Nigeria. And this is what's keeping the economy going. So Nigerians may be outside of the country, but the money that is being sent, fuels the GDP, second to oil. So imagine if Nigerians were not in the diaspora who work so hard and then send this hard-earned dollar back home, the economy probably would not be in the shape that it is now. It's not the best, compared to other countries, but, second to oil, the remittances are what is keeping the economy going. So do you have any comments on what Nigerians in the diaspora can continue to do? Of course, many of us would like to go back home. We don't know how those remittances will be affected. Of course, for those back home, it would be better if we stay here and be sending the dollars home, but many people want to go home. So how are we able to, balance that out? If a large number of Nigerians end up moving back to Nigeria, would, obviously the remittances would reduce, but do you think the economy would be able to grow if a large number go back? I know I've asked you so many questions in one sentence, or try to ask you a number of questions in one sitting.
Right.
But just, from your own perspective, you can respond to any or all.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'll start from the last one regarding people going back home. I'm sure, like most people would know, the rate of which people are leaving right now is incredible. In fact, just about getting to a point where you think, everybody who's skilled, even some of the unskilled, will leave. One question is, if everybody's outside, then who's left inside, right? And who's left to actually do the work that needs to be done. We all know that Nigeria is in a situation where it needs all the help that it can get, right? Look at it, the diaspora being inside are definitely, you have to look at it on a net basis, right? You're getting the remittance. I think if you look at the last numbers, look at the healthcare, for example, the number of doctors in Nigeria is deeply varying. And what happens if you only have the doctors that have retired that are left in the country? What happens? What happens to the new doctors that are graduating to them, give them the experience that they need, and when they get the experience and they leave, what ends up happening? What happens to your healthcare if you don't have the doctors to look after them? So I think on a net basis, we've got to look at it from that standpoint and say, okay, yes, remittances are good, but at the same time, we do need, fit and able people in the country to be able to do the things that need to be done. So I think in terms of going back, of course, I mean, I would think that for a majority of people, if they had their own way, nobody would want to be out of their own country. You'd want to be in your own country. And I think every country would want to have its own citizens in its boundaries. So I think from that standpoint, it's definitely a net positive country. In terms of, is that possible today? That's not possible, right? And the direction is the other way. Most people are going out. So we've got to look at it and say, okay, for what it is today, what's the best thing that the diaspora can do, right? A lot of talk always goes towards remittances. Remittances are good, but I would say that the diaspora have more to offer than just remittances. And nobody likes it when you're seen as a child, which is, like you said, you call and it's always about money, right? So we're sending money, and there's a lot of money, but the truth is also, we don't even know where that money is going. We know what it's being used for, they have an idea, but in terms of can it be harnessed better? If we are sending 20 billion every year, year over year, why is that money just going in and just being spent on everyday things? I mean, the last estimate was that about 70% of that on education, healthcare, and general well-being, which is legal. So how much of that, is there a way that that can be harnessed? If you're anticipating that, okay, 20 billion at least is coming in every year, can say the government or somebody person anticipate and say, okay, we're going to capture 5 billion out of the 20 billion and harness that in such a way that it turns into an investment vehicle that ends up satisfying what the sender wants, but also gives an opportunity for the funds to be used to do something else. So if I can capture 5 billion, use it to do something, maybe generate interest, but at the same time, oh, you wanted to use it for school fees. Well, the school fees get paid, right? The dollars themselves are harnessed, and then, some kind of financial instrument or something is that. I think that that's somewhere that we explored, right? So that we just don't have this 20 billion or so going in every year and it's just being spent all over. And yes, lifting up the economy, but can it be targeted in one particular sector or something to boost one area? And overall, it's a much higher benefit to society than just the money comes in and then it's just being necessities. The other part of it is, in terms of the remittance, we can't just only be about remittances. There's a lot of talent, mind share, everything in the diaspora. And I always ask, why is it always remittances? There's only two things: come back to Nigeria or send money, right? And there are other things. People have time, right? Time is also money. People have strength. There are people who want to volunteer. There are people who have, old stuff that they want to donate. There are things that people can do in the diaspora without having to participate in only those two channels that people typically focus on. How can those things be identified and then captured, right? If there are people who want to mentor students in Nigeria, what can be done about it? Today we assume that people here from all around the world. That can also be done for mentoring, right? The people who want to mentor and can do that from can do that from anywhere. And I mean, you have Nigerians, like you said, in the highest institutions with the highest qualifications, highest experience. Why are we not tapping that, right? Knowledge is money, health is, so there's so many other things that the diaspora can be tapped for beyond the remittances. And I think even if you look at those things and capture them in aggregate, there's a lot more than the 20 billion that we keep, going after the diaspora for. So for me, that's really what it is, broaden the net in terms of diaspora engagement. Look at the diaspora as a spectrum and say, okay, what is it that we can offer that the diaspora will be interested in and matches what is needed in Nigeria, and vice versa, right? There are things that we need here. There's some places there's some places in the US where the cost of Gari is too high, right? Are there things that you can do to improve the products coming in or whatever, or even other products? We're getting to second and third generation Nigerians in the US. How do you continue to keep some of that culture, in there, right? Either and maybe modify our products so that as the generations change and their tastes change, they still have some component of the culture, but it's fitting with what they're expecting, right? So some of those things just need to be, I think, evaluated much better from a holistic standpoint, and moving away from just remittances and let's move back to Nigeria.
Thank you so much. You mentioned an important point. It's not always about the remittances, the amount of money being sent, even though it's very important, to continue to send money to Nigeria to keep the GDP going, and also to help alleviate some of the problems of some of the, family or friends or colleagues that are back there. It's not always remittances for small things, like, just small money, but, many Nigerians actually do have businesses back home. So many, they have other economic activities. Another thing you mentioned that is very important is that, how do we mentor the next generation? How do we continue to harness, or pull together potential future generations of Nigerians that are in the diaspora? And recently, I can't remember the specific name of this university in Canada, where all graduating class of their law school, over 30 something, were all Nigerians. They didn't call one single person from any other country, not even Canada itself, but they were Nigerians. This is very impressive. If we have all this talent overseas, outside of Nigeria, how do we pull together to be able to mentor those in Nigeria and to be able to even know one another? So that's why I think your report comes into play. For the future, series of reports that you're going to have, or the next series, my suggestion would be that, we can have a section that does not talk about money, but about education, about talent, about mentoring, about giving back, about, knowing which cities you have the most population of Nigerians, the types of Nigerians that are there in terms of age, gender, profession, so that would be very, very, very good if we're able to work on something that, relates to that. So, what are your next steps in terms of strategic development to continue, this series of reports? What do you have in place, or what do you have planned that you would like to speak to the audience, both those watching online and those present here on this forum right now?
Yeah, so next off, like you mentioned, we primarily focus on, aggregating data, across Nigeria and the diaspora. So we have a couple of reports in the works. Like in the US, we're going to look at, for example, we have one that's going to look at the restaurant space, the African restaurant space, and do some analysis on that. And then we're also going to look at, so we have restaurants and then African stores, those will be coming out pretty soon. And then we also have some reports that will cover Nigeria, like we're working on the hotels in Nigeria and the universities in Nigeria, so because really our goal is really to help close the information deficit that exists. It's very hard just finding the most basic of information anywhere, right? In the diaspora, you can make the excuse that, okay, we are relatively new and there hasn't been a lot of work in there. In Nigeria, it's just really all over the place. And again, like, what's been happening for the last couple of years is everybody's saying data is the new oil, data is the new oil. And that's the truth, right? Even if we don't want to appreciate data, the people on the other side, right, that write the checks or pay attention and all that, they appreciate data. And, if you've lived in the US long enough, you know that over here is just really around, what is the data saying, right? Nobody wants to hear what you feel and how you feel about stuff. It's just show me the data. So we need to definitely be able to represent ourselves, right, in that same way. There are a lot of things that that we know about ourselves that we should be able to be promoting. We have to tell our own story, right? And we have to tell it in the way that, the other people appreciate, but is local to us and has to come from us, right? And so our goal ultimately in the near term is really to continue on what we're doing, building our platforms where we can engage with the Nigerian and African diaspora, learn from that, and then try to continue to shape the narrative. Like I said, it bothers me a lot personally that $200 billion being spent, and I can't tell of, let's even say, $1 million being spent to target Nigerians that are sending the highest amount of remittances back to Africa. Why should Coca-Cola be targeting me with an African-American singer when Burna Boy is there or something like that? Won't Burna Boy resonate better with a Nigerian-American than, say, an African-American? Probably, but nobody is telling them that those things are possible. Nobody is telling them that the Nigerians in the USA will appreciate this, and being able to show that, yes, they do appreciate those things. There are a number of stats that if you look in the report that stand out. If you look at, for example, one that really stands out to us is languages, right? 22% of the US population speak another language. 40%, I think about 40%, 48% of the Nigerians in the US speak another language apart from English. 62% of Nigerians born outside Nigeria, outside the US, speak another language. So we've always told people, why don't we come out and promote our other languages? There are a lot of people in the US, a lot of Nigerians in the US, who understand things better in other languages that are not English, right? But then we continue to promote our stuff in English and all that only, where when there are people out there who will appreciate being able to communicate in Pidgin, Yoruba, Igbo, or any of the other Nigerian languages. The Hispanics have done it. You go to Chinatown, like you mentioned, they write in Chinese. You go to Koreantown, they write in Korean. So why can't we do the same thing? Why can't we get, you know, people to appreciate that and us be able to take advantage of that? So again, those are the kind of things that at least we're focused on in the near term, being able to, one, tell people that we are here, tell people how we are here and the size of what we can offer, and get them to appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You're absolutely right. You know, in terms of marketing, you know, it's always better done in the indigenous language. You actually are going to have more people buying your products or visiting your, you know, networks or businesses. If they understand what it is that those products mean, what they can do, they can actually reach, you know, a wider pool of you know, consumers than always having marketing strategies or advertisements in only English. And, you know, of course, you know, Prince Akinwale can tell you, you know, I'm an advocate for indigenous languages and not seeing indigenous languages as vernacular or something wrong with your own system or way of communication, and then adopting a colonized language as, you know, a form or the norm or the means of, you know, relating to one another. It makes individuals, you know, Africans, Nigerians, lose the identity, the ability to think or even reason, you know, correctly. Of course, you know, many Nigerians are well versed in the English language, but at the same time, we're losing our own culture, the language, and the being. And earlier you mentioned about the next wave or next generation, 2-3 generations from now, of Nigerians in the US. What's going to become of the culture, the language, the ability to relate to one another? Many will be planning to move back home. When they get home, you know, how are they going to communicate? What of if you're working in rural areas or you plan to set up businesses there and you cannot communicate with the people in those areas? You know, are you going to have translators all the time? Or, I mean, so it's something that we really need to work on, and it would be good for us to start now, to start encouraging one another, you know, through mentoring, networking opportunities, business opportunities, collaborations, so that we can continue to make Nigeria great. And especially looking at how those of us in the diaspora can come together, collaborate, get to know one another in specific industries. You know, we have so many types of associations, you know, accounting association, law associations, this organization XYZ, but they're not specific to those of us who are Nigerians. They're, you know, usually, you know, organizations or associations that if you belong or if you're are in a specific trade or industry, then you're part of that organization. So my vision is to actually have more specific associations, organizations by industry of Nigerians in the US. And it would be a good thing to include or incorporate that as part of your upcoming or future reports. Before we go further, I think Prince Akinwale had mentioned that he believes that remittances are number one, that he doesn't believe in, you know, the oil or gas industry in Nigeria is number one, that is keeping the economy standing. So I'm going to invite him if he can hear me. Prince Akinwale, are you there?
Yes, hello, Remi. I'm here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. Okay, you can have the floor and respond to
thank
Mr.
you,
Anusiem.
thank you, Remi. And thank you, Obinna, as well, for those numbers. You know, numbers, we say, is king. So it's always very exciting that people like you are able to bring the numbers and, you know, just you make it a symbol, and it's always very exciting. Yeah, of course, looking at those previous reports, its report and some other couple of one coming up, and I think Institute, we believe more for just beyond the remittances. So 20 billion, 25 billion, you know, the numbers are out there. And I always say that that is official, right? So if I meet Remi in the airport and say, oh, you're going to Ojomo, please, can you give this to my cousin who lives who's at the college, who is at the university? That's not on record, right? So we think between 10 to 20% is even unofficial transactions that are not even captured in some of these reports. So at DII, what we are looking beyond is just diaspora engagement. So, and I think Obinna has brilliantly mentioned that we have a lot of professors in the United States, and I'm going to put you, Remi, on stage right here, because I'm not sure if you mentioned that earlier on. We have a collaboration with Obafemi University right now. And I must tell the audience that Dr. Alapo, who teaches at State University of New York, is partnering with another professor, Professor Adebusui, at the Obafemi University. So they are able to co-write a curriculum for a semester, and they're able to now teach that same class. So the beauty of that arrangement is that both of them are able to bring the audience of their both classes into conversation. So now we have a class in Ile-Ife and another class in Brooklyn, having that interface for that semester. So I thought that's a very, very brilliant experiment, and we are wishing to do more in most of the university in Nigeria that we have partners. So what we are saying is that that's an experiment from the academics. So we can have Obinna sitting out of California and teaching some guys at FUTA, Federal University of Technology, about some of the stuff he's doing. So what we are saying is that just beyond remittances, we can tap and harness the diaspora resources, diaspora skills and expertise. So I always say that as a diaspora, even for you to even share that your own experience of living in a new environment, it's even an education on its own. It's an experience that young people, even your friends, your alma mater can even tap into. So there are gazillion other benefits that diaspora engagement can be created. Obinna mentioned mentoring. Students in the high school, in your alma mater, and your own student association, you can even be in business, you know, whereby people, upcoming entrepreneurs in Nigeria, like you all know now, Nigeria is a huge hub. You know, I mean, I thought there are a lot of Silicon Valley coming up out of Nigeria hub, you know. So the point I'm making is that we have all this. So the beauty of what we need to build, based on what Obinna has said, is creating a database whereby we can match. So if somebody is in Baltimore and maybe is in the social economic, social services industry, we can match that individual to teach a class at Achiever University in Owo. Maybe they have a nursing program, or they have something in the area of social services. So in the nursing area as well. So what we are saying is, let's build that gap. That's the beauty of what Diaspora Innovation is doing. Let's put people together. There's the quantum of energy. You know, we're talking about this generation. We're talking about what about the first, second, third generation, whereby they've not even been to Nigeria before, but you'll be so amazed about what they know about Burna Boy, about what they know about what's happening in Nigeria. And I can tell you for free, some of them just hang out. They just buy a ticket and come to Nigeria in December. And yet their parents will be like, don't go. I'm like, they got friends, so they're gonna hang out and just, you know, do what they need to do. So we still need to really have these huge resources. So that way, if they're in Nigeria, let's have an hour to talk to the university group. Let's have an hour to talk to a session. I mean, you don't have to really come into Nigeria to even engage. I guess now that has really changed, because that is the lesson we have learned from COVID. Yeah. You know, COVID tells us that, taught us rather that stay where you are and you can still get things done. So Dr. Alapo is sitting in Brooklyn and he's teaching a class in Ile-Ife, right? Yeah. So on a weekly basis. So those are the beauty of what we can benefit from those interaction. And I think the beautiful work that Obinna is doing, we're having a partnership to be able to create a kind of elaborate platform whereby people can get identified and they can have that combination of being collaborated, so that we can have more benefit. Thank you so much, Dr. Alapo.
Thank you so much, Prince Akinwale, for the comments. And I'd like to chime in about the ongoing projects that we have in collaboration with a professor at University of Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife. This started about 2 years ago when Prince Akinwale approached me, and we started this Diaspora Innovation Institute monthly webinar then. We had a series of meetings with, the HODs, the university administrators, the president or the VC of OAU. And, at that time, we were thinking of different projects or programs or activities that we could work on together. And, at my university in New York, the opportunity came that I applied for the collaborative online international learning program, which is a platform for faculty that would like to engage in research or teaching with another faculty in a different country. And at first I was thinking how it would work, how I was going to be teaching online, to students or collaborating with faculty in Nigeria. First, I had to think of the access to technology for many of the students, how they will be able to access the resources or the learning materials, the time difference, and so many other factors. But it's a flexible program, created by the State University of New York. So it's so flexible that each faculty can design that project to suit their own availability. So right now, even with this meeting that we have, it's about 11 a.m. in New York. And in Nigeria, I believe it should be about 4 or 5 or so p.m. So what we've done in the last year is just to have either pre-recording of lessons, have a platform where those are posted, learning materials for students to access, and then if they're available, we're able to have one-on-one interactions with students in Nigeria and right here in the US, and it's proved to be meaningful. The first engagement we had last year did not go well because of the strikes, but we were able to have a lecture where some students from Obafemi Awolowo University were able to log in to join a live class. And we have that similar arrangement for this semester. So this is one way that we can collaborate besides remittances of, in terms of money. We can have remittances of knowledge, knowledge creation, knowledge sharing across borders, Nigerians working together, both here and on the continent, to improve the education, the power of people back home. So thank you so much, Prince Akinwale. Mr. Anusiem, do you have any responses to what Prince Akinwale has mentioned or discussed with us?
Yeah, I think we're totally in alignment on that. The remittances are definitely, propping up the economy, and the engagement with the diaspora has to be beyond remittances. It just can't, because remittances are what they are. People are going to send money anyway, right? Because of the situation back home. And the question is, what else can you get from people? And a lot of people are really willing to help, but a lot of people just don't know how to help. So trying to figure out how to put in systems that enable people first identify what the issues are and be able to trust that whatever they do will actually be used for what they intended to be used for. Building those systems and having them in place, it would definitely be helpful. The other thing to add, I think, mentioned regarding COVID is, the first time around, we know when GSM came in and what GSM did for Nigeria, right? They say, oh, Nigeria leapfrogged with GSM. And I think it's the same thing now we can see with technology, let's say the internet and all that. We've been lagging behind with the internet. And I always say Nigeria is about 5 years behind on the internet in terms of adoption and penetration. But with COVID, I think a lot of things have come to the surface, and now it's no longer a case of you need to be present to get things done. And I think there lies the big opportunity that can be exploited, right? And you're starting to see it. You're starting to see a lot of people in the diaspora and in Nigeria starting to build solutions that cross those borders, right? And like you're saying, with your class and other things, mentorship and all that, you now have an opportunity to reach people, right, remotely. It doesn't, you can do it where even the time zone and all that isn't that critical. And how do you now take that opportunity and just maximize it as much as we can? We're behind. We have a lot of problems. We have a lot of work to do, but it can be done. But we just need to be very smart about how we do what we want to do. We don't. To me, there are no solutions for us to go and copy. Like they say, our problems are always unique. So we have to think about very unique solutions to address our own very unique problems, and we have to do it together.
Thank you so much. Very important, collaboration, unity, unifying and pulling efforts together. Before we let you off, we're waiting for our next guest speaker. He's on the way. He's being held up right now with some other activities, but he'll be joining us very soon. We have 2 comments in the chat, and one is by a VAG. I'm sorry, I don't know who that is. So if you would like to come on to ask your question, you had a comment or question about remittances and keeping the economy going. And then we have another comment by a Miss Doris, who wanted to find out if the question on technology, to use to collate all the collected data and how to manage that data in real time. So VAG, are you available? You can unmute yourself.
Yes.
You can introduce yourself and then
okay.
ask your question.
Okay, thank you. I'm a representative of VAG. It's called Very Alive Global. And my question and the contribution is how do we, in all this, how do we synthesize the mind of our people? Because first of all, for me, I do believe that the mind of our people are not rich enough. Back here, of course, we are, because we are in the system that is functioning. However, in order for us to take all this back, because diaspora, of course, we are linking it with our origin, with Nigeria as a whole. But I do find out that on the ground, is the system there uploading data? Just as we have doctors, we have many families and that want their children to be doctors. We have doctors, we have many disciplines that have practitioners. So do we really have the university communities, the schools embracing data as of this very time, moment in time? So my contribution would be that, first of all, while all this is going on here, it's about time I don't know if the Nigerian community have picked up data as part of their curriculums. It's been a while that I left out, but if they have not, because if you look back into the country, how many of those companies, both big and small, are actually using data, are actually collecting their data? So if we are doing it here, in order for us to merge, the 20 billion, the 25 billion, and know what it is being used for, they must be able to be doing it over there. And that's where we are all coming out from. So before we come out here and get education here, the mind of our people needs to be synthesized. So that's my contribution, that we have to find a way to get the government involved, to spend the money where the money is supposed to be spent. And that is the area of education. The average man on the street, of course, I don't think they know. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. At the average person on the street, people that are doing this business, that is what is keeping the economy going. As I said, I second with Prince Akinwale, because if you look back to 1985, when they 85, I believe, when they introduced ZAP, when we have inflation, the GPD coming from the oil and all those things, they want to get into the people. So is this money that we are remitting home that the average person on the street, these people are actually using to continue to run the economy. And that's what is keeping it going. If you withdraw, when the money were not going in that time, when there were no avenues to remit money home, there was inflation. Nobody had money. But now people have this money, liquidified cash, to actually spend on day to day. And that's what keeps the economy going as other countries. Not this money that is being made and nobody knows where it's going to. So for me, I would like collaboration in that area where the mind of the people, first of all, has to be, renewed. We have to come to understand that we need these things, because if I have every Nigerian on the street, Lagos or here, even we that we're educated, they'll tell you that's not my problem right now. My problem is how to feed. So data analysis is one area that I am, I have some knowledge, and to collect data is much more than what we are talking about. It actually can help much more in bigger ways for every average person to know what next and where next to go to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You forgot to tell us your name. You only told us you're a representative of VAG.
Yes, my name is Bola.
Okay, Ms. Bola, thank you so much for your commentary. I would like to bring Mr. Anusiem to the floor to respond to your comment. And if Prince Akinwale wants to make some, to respond as well. Mr. Obinna.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so definitely agree, with the need for data and in terms of remittances. Yes, remittances support the economy, there's no doubt, right? But me personally, I think that there's too much of a focus on remittances, right? I personally would prefer that the conversation is broader, right? Because I've seen sometimes where the conversation around remittances tends to want to be weaponized, right? And that shouldn't be the case, But that said, on remittances, the other part around data, yes. So the data in terms of the mindset, I don't think that it's in our community. We're just not, we tend to react more with gut feel, anecdotes, gossip, rumors, whatever I want to call it, rather than asking for the data and trying to make informed comments or informed decisions. So I agree that, yes, we need to definitely get the populace educated, and then understanding that, sentiments aside, the things need to be a bit more data driven. I mean, not everything needs to be data. We're all human beings, right? So there's a human component as well. But rather than, doing gut feelings and, just split second reactions to everything, we should be trying to at least identify data and then being able to use that data to get to where we want to get to. So what I've found, my personal experience, is there are companies, right? Yes, Nigeria seems like it's not data driven, but believe me, there are large companies that I've seen, and we've done some work for some of them, and they do a lot of data, like all the FCMG, the fast moving consumer goods, Cadbury, those kind of people, they know everything. The challenge, at least what we see, is that unlike here, the data that they get remains with them. So it ends up being siloed. So rather than some of that data being public and available for everybody else to use, it's retained within the walls and they only use it internally. And that's not a good way, at least for data to be stored, right? You need some level of data collaboration, right? So that one, the data is consistently being cleaned, and then it is available, and then people can build on top of it. So that's been our experience. On the government side, there's data, but the question, data is for the sake of data is not always very useful. You see government data, and a lot of times you're not even sure whether it's accurate. Even if you see it, it's just all over the place. It might be dated. You might see data that's 2013 and you're in 2022. What can you do with that data? So that's what we've seen, at least from the government end. And there definitely needs to be a lot more in terms of data availability, data collection, data management. And sometimes we think about it and say maybe it's even a bit intentional, because if you look at some of the problems that we have, right, reasons why they exist or they're able to exist and continue being detrimental to us is because there's no transparency, right? So if you don't have the data that can say, okay, for example, you came into office at this time and we can track your performance based on the ABC metrics, then it becomes easy to just say anything and nobody can actually hold you accountable. So when there's no data, at least as a continuum where people can look at it whenever they want to look at it, it allows for a lot of things to happen, at least on the government end, that are not really beneficial to us. So again, I totally agree in terms of, yes, we need to figure out how to get the populace, and most of it comes from maybe the curriculum and all that, you know, adjusting to be more data-driven, having our conversations being that way, so that we can actually hold people accountable. That's the thing that data does, right? It holds you accountable. You can always, somebody can always go back independently and say, A plus B had to be C, so why are you getting E, X, or Y?
Thank you so much. You've responded to Ms. Bola's comments, Ms. Bola from VAG, and I guess that goes into the question that Ms. Doris posted in the chat on how to use technology to collate all the collected data and how to manage this data in real time. So unless you have other comments to make, I would like to invite Prince Akinwale to also chime in and respond to the two comments.
Yeah, if I can just add to that.
Just a second, Mr. Prince Akinwale. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Anusiem.
Yeah, so in terms of data collection, like I said, you know, our problems are very unique, right? We're not coming from anywhere, right? So a lot of these things that are, you know, very well present or, you know, used in, say, the developed part of the world, we have to build them. So there's no one technology that we use for data collection, right, in Nigeria, because there's no place the data is available, right? Like here in the US, just about anything you want, there's somebody selling that piece of data, right? And they're data brokers. There's a whole industry around data brokerage and all that. And you can get it, or you can go to the government, or you can go wherever, you know, and they have it. You know, you go to, say, the US government for trade or whatever, their databases, and you just access it yourself and do that. We don't have it. So from the Nigerian diaspora standpoint, everything has to be an opportunity. If you rely only on technology, technology is not a means to it's not always the end solution, right? So how do you end up collecting addresses of the average streets in Nigeria, outside of Lagos and maybe Abuja, where the streets are numbered? Technology can help you do that. So like in our case, we have people who walk around every day and then write down the addresses and take pictures. That's how you have to do it. That's how Google does it. That's how we do it. And that's how anybody who wants to start has to do it. And that's how it was even done here. The thing is that here, they've been doing it for so long, and then they've gotten to a point where they have the data, then they can use technology. Like right now, Google has their cars that, you know, drive around and take pictures and all that. But when Google started in Lagos, they had people actually going door to door and actually writing down the addresses, because there's no other way to do it. You know, so again, in terms of data collection, you know, it's a combination of different things, right? You just have to understand what the environment is, and then just figure out solutions that at least help you get off the ground. Then when you get to a certain stage, then you can introduce technology to make things a lot easier.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anusiem, for responding. I would like to bring Prince Akinwale on to also chime in. He's just informed me that, you know, Dr. Nevin is not able to join us because of some technical issues or getting caught up with some other activities that is preventing him from being able to log in. But we certainly always appreciate and welcome him to join us on future webinars. So Prince Akinwale, please take the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much, Remi, for managing this so far. So for the question asked about, you know, reorientation access, which is big, and Obinna, I think we have mentioned that in previous conversation, access to data, access to even the technology itself, ensuring that, you know, digital training, for instance, I mean, of course, I mean, if I look back now, 10 years back, 2012, when I go back to Nigeria, you know, to have this kind of conversation seamlessly, it was difficult, but now I think we made some incremental progress. However, you know, we can still make more, you know, based on what's going on around the world. So having said that, some of the solutions, I think now we can drill down some of the solution of this data, of some of this report on our own locally. I guess that's the goal. is to really interface and build, as it were, with different platforms. So we have the Nigerian Diaspora Commission, which is the federal government agency in Abuja. So that's the advocacy the team has been doing for a while. So now the movement is going to all the different states and saying that, you know, each state can have a diaspora commission as well. Because what that does is that it creates interface. So by default, if you come to Nigeria, you're likely to belong to a state. So if you are going to Oyo State, Anambra State, you know, Niger State, or Cross River State, if there's a diaspora commission, because we believe that's a catalyst to ensuring the engagement we are talking about here can be reasonable. So if, for instance, if Obinna is really organizing some guys in California to be able to do a project in Nigeria somewhere else, if there is a hub existing, it becomes easier to be able to interface. So the meeting can be going on before, and so technology can just be made to really make sure those things really happen. Because again, there are plethora of problems if you think about it in Nigeria, but technology is actually a very good way out. And a colleague of mine recently wrote a beautiful paper, which I'm going to share. If you provide your email, I'm going to share with you all, because he said that diaspora engagement has to be wrapped up in the foreign policy of the federal government. At the same time, is the SDG. And because, of course, things just happened in New York, and SDG, I mean, the whole place was full of different people. So in terms of how does this SDG become actualized? So I saw a couple of people on this platform. I saw an MD, who's a doctor. I know they've been doing a very good job in the United States. I know about AMPA. AMPA, they've done an heck of a job, and I think Obinna mentioned them as well. The Association of the Nigerian Physicians in Diaspora, and I mean in North America rather, yeah. So they are literally like the largest professional organization that we have. And recently, I must let you know as well, because that's good news, right? One of their members, I'm not sure, but I think one of the doctors in the United States, in New York City, by the way, Remi, he made a donation of $1 million, right? So to me, and there was so much noise in Nigeria, at first, actually, they didn't believe him, that somebody in the United States could really make that whopping donation. And I'm here just laughing. I'm like, do they even know that there are hundreds of Nigerians in diaspora that can make those donations? So the question right now is, how does the environment becomes actually congenial for people to trust and say, I'm going to give back to my alma mater. I'm going to give back and make them foundation donation to an hospital and things like that. So I know those are kind of things that the Diaspora Innovation Institute is trying to build with universities, with institutions, so that number one, the trust deficit has to really be reviewed, right? We have to really build a trust level so that people will know that if we are giving this so much, it can go to that level as well. So that's part of the diaspora engagement I'm talking about. So education is one. As we know, 10 million kids are out of school. That is crazy, and that is frightening to anyone, right? So what can we do in our own little way? So what we're doing is we're supporting by saying that diaspora member can work with each of the states. If you belong to a state, that means you must have gone to an high school in that state. Find out what it is that can be done. And if you don't know how to find out, talk to us. We can leverage. We're talking to Edo State in the area of education. We're talking to Ondo State. They have a Ministry of Diaspora. So some of this critical mass of ideas and solutions can be created. So if we have a one-stop shop whereby a diaspora will say, I want to do this. And for free, I will tell you, an average diaspora, aside from sending money, they want to give back. And I was chatting with the university vice chancellor recently. I'm like, you guys don't even know how to engage us. I mean, you don't even have a donation button on your website. So you're not even asking for a donation, not in cash. It can even be in kind. That are you going to be in Nigeria for a week? Come and talk to our university student. Come and talk to our grad student. So again, there are a couple of other even fellowship that even existing that even diaspora can come under. So that way it can come in for those who want to really make a big plug into coming back. I tell people now you don't have to come back to really be able to give back, right? So we now call it digital diaspora engagement. So you can sit where you are we can connect you with an opportunity, and you can really create a solution. So the brilliant example that we have is what Dr. Alapo is doing. It's just an experiment, if not because of this ASU strike, which is another deficit on our own part. To be home for almost, it's going to be for a year right now. So 7 months, that's a long time. So the damage into that system. So what do? We can't just be looking or sitting around. We need to find a way to have solutions. So the other bit I want to mention is that we are working with some high schools whereby we are building some digital resource center, because access to technology is still a big deal. So I will set it out that, and I'm going to share that link. UNICEF and Microsoft, they've developed a very robust platform. I was blown away when I saw that platform. It's called the Nigerian Learning Passport. I mean, they have a curriculum as from the primary one to at least to high school. And it's interesting that I took a civics class, on that platform. So it was kind of interesting, more so that Nigeria is celebrating an independence. So what are a couple of things that talk about nation building? Because those are the things that we need to talk about and make sure that even the young people are really aware about. So SDG is key. So we're talking about education, talking about healthcare, talking about entrepreneurship, and any other way that diaspora skills can be harnessed. Those are kind of critical mass, which we need to really build up. And I'm willing to take any question at any point in time. But I think on the overall, the diaspora huge resources, like Obinna has mentioned. Remittances is good, right? But beyond remittances, the quantum, the quantum of the skill set, talk about any sector you have been. So how do we harness this is to make sure that we are really able to really add value to the system. Thank you, Remi.
Thank you so much, Prince Akinwale, for the comments that you've shared. I would also like to add that Diaspora Innovation Institute has some plans in place, projects in place, collaborations with other universities in Nigeria that those of us in the diaspora can actually collaborate with. You don't have to be a faculty to be teaching, but there are so many programs, projects in place right now. If you're a tech person or, so many different activities that are ongoing. So let us come together and pull together and see how we're able to do something for this one Nigeria, this great country of ours that the independence we're celebrating about 2 days time. And, we need to harness the resources, pull the resources of the diaspora together. And resources does not always mean money or remittances. It's not about money always that you're sending, education, knowledge sharing, knowledge creation is very important. As a matter of fact, when many of us came to the States or other places across, the world, we probably were not planning that we would up and move permanently, and we wanted to, come temporarily, maybe for schooling, to attend universities and get some work experience and then move back home. But, as everything took a different turn, many people are left outside of Nigeria. And Mr. Anusiem was right earlier, many people actually want to go back. It would be more beneficial that you were not immigrants and were in our own countries contributing in any various ways that we can. So it's a great opportunity to get to know the work of NGEX, through Mr. Anusiem and the data collection and the work that he's been doing. And, we should support that effort. I don't know if you have your contact information you would like to share. Maybe post it in the chat, or you can speak it for those of our audience members watching outside of this platform that we're sitting on right now. And also Prince Akinwale, if you can mention a couple of other works that you have ongoing, because DII is 10 years old now, And the reason we haven't had this webinar in a few months was because you were all over the place, meeting with every key person in Nigeria on how to engage the diaspora in activities or projects or programs that will be beneficial to many of our children if they chose to go back home, or to many of us if we decided that it was time to go set up businesses or to collaborate with Nigerians there. So I would invite first Mr. Anusiem, because he's our keynote speaker, to let us know when we should expect the next report and how we can engage with his company in making this, be something that we're very proud of and we continue to want to collaborate on. And then I'm going to bring Prince Akinwale to give us the final comments for this program today. Mr. Anusiem, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. So regarding the next reports, like I mentioned, we do have some reports in the in the works. We should be releasing some reports in the next, maybe about within the next 4 weeks. We should have 1 or 2 reports out, and before the end of the year, we should have some other reports out as well. So we should have about 4 reports out, maybe not as comprehensive as the Nigerians in the USA report. Like I mentioned, what we have in the works, we're doing something on the Nigerian universities just to address, to add some color to what's going on with the strike and all that. We're thinking and saying, there's a lot of sentiment around the strike, but nobody really knows the numbers. How many students are really at home? How many students are really being impacted? Which regions are impacted more than the other? And all that. So we do have a quick analysis that we're putting together, and that should be out pretty shortly. And that even just highlights some of the issues like that we have with data. So for example, we've been trying to find a list of all the Nigerian universities in Nigeria. And believe it or not, that's very difficult to get, right? Even when we go to the government websites, we have the government Ministry of Education tells us 196, and then the Nigerian Universities Commission tells us about 216 universities. So, where do you start from? So it adds more complexity to just something that should be as simple as getting a list of universities. So we have that coming out, and we're also working on something that shows, what the hotels in Nigeria look like. Again, I'm trying to just give some insight into what that industry looks like. And then we are working on something, like I mentioned, on something on the restaurants, African restaurants in the US and African stores. Again, just to give some idea of what the magnitude and breadth of that sector looks like. We'll probably be doing a refresh of the Nigerians in the USA report next year, and also looking at doing Nigerians in Canada as well. So that should be about Q1 or early part of Q2. We should get those reports out. The challenge really is around the data, right? The USA report was easier to do because some of the data was readily available. So some of these places, we have to figure out how to get the data or set up our own systems that can collect that data and give us enough information that we can use to generate a report.
Thank you so much, Prince Akinwale.
Right, thank you so far, Remi, for putting this together. And I really appreciate the other insights given by Obinna and other individuals who have been able to ask questions. And I think from our standpoint at Diaspora Innovation Institute, our goal after 10 years is actually to innovate, since we have that in our name, so that, number one, we're creating more robust opportunity for partners locally, and as well, and on the diaspora side, so that we can be the gap in between the public-private, and at the same time, ensure that whatever is in need, like a few days ago, I had an interface with some of the rector of a university, of a polytechnic, and I was kind of, chastising, like, so what are the focus of your polytechnic? I say, talking to me about technical training knowledge and stuff like that, and I'm like, so if you have that, how are you strategically engaging a diaspora, even your own local territory, like, so because of that, I'm like, open a diaspora office in your polytechnic. You know what that means is that when there is a diaspora from that town, make it attractive. And like Andrew will say that when a diaspora is in town, roll up a red carpet, because Andrew Nevin, by the way, they've written another very beautiful report on that the oil is number 2, because there's a lot of thievery in the oil, right? So number 1 is the Nigerian human capital. That's diaspora export. And actually they brought another report recently, and I'm going to talk about, I think Obinna should be aware that, beyond this, you can't stop a medical doctor moving to United States or United Kingdom. So there's the Cuba experience and the Philippines experience as well with nurses. You can be the incubating country for some of this and train and make sure that you are exporting them. However, though, if you have to do it, you have to put in a structure, not for direct return, but for consistency of how things should be done, and even for support of, because we have so many young people now that need skill set, they need jobs. So if they can't get jobs locally, you can train them, and even they don't even have to really move abroad, right? So they can sit where they are and support. So Obinna, those are the things that actually, on a robust level that we need to really talk more about a solution, because everybody, people are saying they are moving, you can't stop them from moving, right? So that's economics, right? Migration has been there forever. Even Abraham moved, he left in some town, he moved out. So it's going to be there, nobody can stop it. However, though, let's have a structure, a system in place to ensure that people have skills. And at the same time, when you do that, it's easier for people, because even in the MD, the Maryland, Washington, DC area, there's an hospital in Bethesda that have a lot of people from Philippines, because the government have put them together. So there are a lot of things that we can look at in Nigeria and look at that as a solution. And finally, in the area of technology, we believe so much in the ICT as a solution. So how much does it take to even train to have a certification in cybersecurity or any other digital training? So we believe that if the diaspora is looking at this as a solution, you can train 10 people, 10 students from a local high school and pay for them. So incrementally, we are now even improving the assets that my very good friend from Baltimore mentioned about, because you need to have access to this. So the site I mentioned is the Nigerian Learning Passport.com. It's a beautiful platform whereby anyone with even a simple device can log in and take a class. But we're not saying that, since the access is still limited because of internet, let's build a little bit smaller classrooms or have internet in them in most of the high school, so that even after class, after 2 p.m., they can spend another 1 hour to have a certification. So at the end of the day, it's not everybody that's going to move to a university. So if after high school, you're able to have a certification in cybersecurity, you can have a job forever. And you don't have to even leave Nigeria, right? So you can sit in Owo, in Ogbomoso, or in Enugu and have a job to support a company in California. So those kind of the new things that we have to think about. So migration is important, but again, everybody's not going to move out. So now let's build a structure to make sure that wherever you are, you can still make an impact. You can stay in Nigeria and make USD based on the skill that you have. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to more people. Please put in your email addresses. We're going to share this recording to make sure that we can be part of the Diaspora Forum, so we can keep the conversation going. Thank you again, brilliantly, Remi, for this beautiful job you've done today. Thank you. And
thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much, Prince Akinwale. Well, we've come to the end of our webinar for today. And again, I would like to sincerely thank Mr. Obinna Anusiem from NGEX NGEX, the CEO and the founder, and for his commentaries, his contributions today on the Nigerians in the Diaspora report that he produced in 2020, and for his ongoing work in the Nigerian communities across the US. Thank you so much, Mr. Anusiem, for joining us today, and also to Ms. Bola for her commentaries, Ms. Bola from VAG, and Ms. Doris for the post that you've left in the chat about collaborating with other Nigerians to volunteer right here in the US so that we can work on better data collection, and providing information on volunteers to help NGEX with their work. So thank you so much to everybody. And Prince Akinwale, it's always a pleasure, having you join us. And we look forward to your warm participation, everyone. Next month, we'll be sending you invitation for the next webinar. Again, as Prince Akinwale has mentioned, please leave your email or contact information in the chat. And for those of you who are not, able to, you can contact Diaspora Innovation Institute at gmail.com. Prince Akinwale or any administrator will be able to respond to your emails and add you to the WhatsApp group where we meet up every now and then. So again, thank you very much, everybody. Happy Independence Day. And let us continue to work together and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Obinna. See you.
Bye.